tuning in and staying with us for this awesome 10th year. My goodness me. And to everyone in the chat room, just a quick shout out to you, Stardust Man, Packwoman, Nobody, and you'll see Meki and Narara. That's who I am in the chat room. You should join us in the chat room, by the way, because it's cool and you can talk to us while we're on air. And it does make sense that you can ask us a question about the topic we're currently talking about. Now, give this 30 seconds delay, because that's what we have in radio. Normally it's for a sneeze or cough alarm, but it doesn't really matter. Stardust Man has suggested that people do not understand that World War III has already started, the war between the people of the world and the so-called leaders of the world. Well, yeah. You don't want to press that in their face too hard, because they'll turn around and look back at their Facebook screen and just continue to post stuff and look at cats. Look, this the hypothesis part 4 is what we're talking about. There's 3 other parts to this, and they started on our 500th show. Why this is the 4th is because we have, that's a good question, because we did 2 parts in the first one part last week, that's 3, and this one is the 4th. Now, to carry on from where we left off last week, this was tapping the full potential of telomerase. Now, I won't reread what we had, except for the incomplete component of that last piece. And as you know, telomerase is a chemical in which the presence of our DNA will extend the telomeres, the junk DNA that's sacrificed on each replication, and it's there to line up both sides properly. And when our pair come together, they know where to join up. And it's like the leader film on a 35mm camera, or it's like if you're into, is it 80mm, 120mm cinematography, like cinema film, like Star Wars and things. There's a leader strip there just to wind it onto the reel. Well, a very similar thing, and that's what the telomeres do. And it's when they've run out of junk DNA, that's the lineup DNA. When they've run out of that, then there are errors in the replication process. And we get to about 35. Telomerase is actually produced in a number of cells on their own, like eyes on the inside of the mouth and the gut, for instance. But it's turned off for the most part for all of our other cells. Once we hit a certain age, and we know that there's the diminishing of it around about 35 if we're lucky, a little longer or a little less if we're unlucky. So that's the background. Now, here's the text. Just as youthful stem cells use telomerase to offset telomere length loss, cancer cells, on the other hand, employ telomerase to maintain their aberrant and destructive growth. Augmenting and regulating telomerase function will have to be performed with precision, walking a narrow line between cell rejuvenation and a heightened risk for cancer development. But this text we're reading out isn't Meki and I's belief. This is, papers that have been written, and these are early on, and there's still a discussion here. The risk of cancer, because the cells will just be able to grow forever. But the real discussion here is that the cell's replication is kept honest and clean and a solid replication of the original intent of the cell and its DNA code by the telomerase. And any cell in the body, whether it's got telomerase being produced for it or not, and whether it's, say, immortal or not, will have its telomerase turned on if there's a mutation caused by cancer. It turns it on to keep itself alive. Now, distinct from human stem cells, somatic cells constitute the vast majority of the cells in the human body and lack telomerase activity. The telomerase deficiency of a human somatic cells reduces the risk of cancer development as telomerase fuels uncontrolled cancer growth. Therefore, drugs that increase telomerase activity indiscriminately in all cell types are not desired. Toward the goal of precisely augmenting telomerase activity selectively within adult stem cells, this discovery reveals the crucial step in telomerase catalytic cycle as an important new drug target. Small molecule drugs can be screened or designed to increase telomerase activity exclusively within stem cells for disease treatment as well as anti-aging therapies without increasing the risk of cancer.
There's just one thing I want to add here, and this is the logical leap, I think, that is being made. And I still haven't got a good answer from any medical people that I know, and I know a lot of them. This is this one here. The telomerase deficiency of human somatic cells reduces the risk of cancer development, as telomerase fuels uncontrolled cancer cell growth. So this is taken as one statement, but that's not correct. So telomerase fuels uncontrolled cancer cell growth. Is that a true statement? Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Once the mutated cell has mutated, right, as it were, has gone wrong, as Dave mentioned, telomerase is turned back on. The enzyme is turned back on, which now protects the telomeres of the cancer cell. Okay? But the cell has to be faulty before that can occur.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in my logic, and again, I'm happy for anyone to correct me here because, if I'm wrong, then I'm wrong. But in my mind, if the telomerase, if the enzyme, the protective enzyme for the telomeres remains active, then the likelihood of cells mutating due to copying errors, etc., is less likely. It just, the other environmental factors like toxins, radiation, etc., that can lead to cell mutation, absolutely. But certainly aging and the associated senescence and cell death, that is, and increased inaccuracy of the copying process would be forestalled if the enzyme remained active, right? Fair enough?
Mm-hmm.
So that's really where I fear that the logical leap is. Sorry, Dave, off you go. I got to just take care of something here, my friend.
I understand. So June 2021, potential of naturally derived compounds in telomerase and telomere modulation in skin senescence and aging. This was, Department of Clinical Chemistry and Molecular Diagnostics, Poznan University of Medical Sciences, Poland. It's a translation. It was received 2021, so it's from February, and it was accepted in the 7th of June this year and published on the 15th of June this year. So this is a very recent article. The abstract is proper functioning of cells, their ability to divide, differentiate, and regenerate is dictated by genomic stability. The main factors contributing to this stability are the telomeric ends that cap chromosomes. Telomere biology and telomerase activity have been of interest to scientists in various medical science fields for years, including the study of both cancer and senescence and aging. All these processes are accompanied by telomere length modulation. That is, maintaining the key levels of telomerase component H-TERT, H and that's capital T-E-R-T, expression and telomerase activity that provide optimal telomere length as well as some non-telometric function represents a promising step in advanced anti-aging strategies, especially in dermocosmetics. Some known naturally derived compounds contribute significantly to telomere and telomerase metabolism. However, before they can be safely used, it's necessary to assess their mechanisms of action and potential side effects. This paper focuses on the metabolic potential of natural compounds to modulate telomerase and telomere biology and thus prevent senescence and skin aging. Ooh. So the role of stress and fear, etc. This is an abridged version from May 4, 2020. Telomere time. Why we should treat biological age cautiously. Are you back?
I'm back, my friend.
All right, why don't you take that one?
Thank you. I do apologize, everybody. My little one cut his finger. And as you all know, wounds on the head and the hand and feet bleed profusely. So, telomere time. Why should we treat biological age cautiously? Good question. And as you know, if you're a child, you heal much quicker than if you're an old person. And that's because of all the things we're discussing here, which is a perfect segue from my little one's mishap into our little discussion. Look at me, segueing all over the place. The study, and sorry, this is Daniel A. Notterman, MD, and Lisa Schneppner, PhD, that I quoted here as the authors. The study by Martens et al. Shows that the telomere length, and after warning this is abridged, of newborns and their placentas were associated with the social economic status, SES, of their parents. So telomere length seems to have an association with the socio-economic status of their parents. Amazing stuff, right? They argue that this finding could partially explain the well-known associations between socio-economic status, health, and longevity. I mean, even the royal family, Dave, they all live well into their hundreds, it seems. Okay. Now, in landmark work nearly 2 decades ago, Apple et al. Found that the average telomere length, TL, was shorter than expected in individuals as the extent of caregiver stress increased. An association between stress or adversity and average TL, again telomere length, of circulating blood or saliva cells has been repeatedly demonstrated in diverse contexts since the work of Apple et al. And many researchers have construed telomere shortening relative to chronological age as evidence of advanced biological aging, cellular aging, weathering, susceptibility to disease, and even a decreased potential lifespan. However, the complexity of this phenomenon is such that the biological mechanism of contextual telomere shortening is still not established despite 2 decades of research. However, we can conclude there is a very early, at birth, association between SES, which is the socioeconomic status, and telomere length. And this is consistent with the observation that TL shortening, relative to the overall population, is associated with later declines in health and well-being. It is not clear what is added by postulating an intervening construct, such as biological age, to explain these findings. So just to be very clear, it seems that if you're poor and you suffer from all the related stresses of being poor, like lack of money, lack of resources, lack of choice, having to work crazy, 5 jobs, crazy hours, etc., probably lacking in nutrition as well, that will have an effect on the length of the telomeres of your children.
I know, that's crazy thought, isn't it?
Okay, just think about that for a second, right? So it is as though, think of it as bees in biological terms. It is as though if you have an underclass that is underclass for several generations, okay? And we saw this in the Middle Ages in Europe, in fact, and elsewhere as well. But if you have an underclass which is not as well off, poor, let's call it, then the feudal overlords, etc., chances are that there is a physical biological diversion in those 2 classes of people.
Whose castle is this? Old woman.
The
Man.
king of who? I'm not a woman. Exactly. Right? I'm not old. What was it?
I'm 37.
37. Oh, but that's really the point here, right? Now, again, I want you to think about this. Now, all these royals, people that are really rich, famous, usually people that have money and are well off. I mean, number one, they can afford the best healthcare. That's number one. But number two, they probably are the least stressed. I mean, on average, I'm not saying it's true for everybody. These are, sweeping general statements across populations of people. That's what we're doing here, okay? Whereas, someone that is constantly stressed, it seems to take a toll on them.
Yeah,
but the kicker here is it takes a toll on their offspring. So, we're always talking about people that are born into poverty, if you will, start, well, behind the 8 ball in the race. Like they're already a couple of steps behind. Now it seems this actually translates to their biology. They are born with shorter telomeres. Think about that for a second. That's astounding. So if you do this for a long enough time, right, you will end up with people that are longer lived than their poor, I guess, cousins, if you will, right? And
well, the less stress, the longer you live.
Yeah. And and in fact, that would also explain why the Buddhist monks, etc., seem to be quite long-lived as well, right? Now, think about that for a second. So, forget all about the fountain of youth and drugs to become immortal, right, etc., etc. You can achieve longevity, and maybe even extreme longevity, if you're in the top tier of the socio-economic status world.
Absolutely.
Right, as opposed to everybody else. That puts a whole different spin on wealth distribution, on poverty. A whole different spin, because you're depriving by having billionaires. I know this is my favorite argument. You're depriving thousands, if not millions, of people of longer lifespans. You are condemning people to death by having this unequal distribution of wealth, right? Not in an abstract way, or they haven't got enough food or whatever it is. Not in a very real way. You're changing their biology, and that's really the point that we're trying to make here. So that's a small glimpse into the world of our biology. But think about this on a larger scale as well. We maintain that there are entities that are extremely long-lived. Okay, and our biology has been interfered with significantly. Now, if stress, and I want you to really think about this, if stress is enough to physically affect the length of your telomeres, just stress, right, and the associated release of certain, chemicals in your body, imagine what directed drugs, therapy, etc., could do.
Absolutely.
To telomeres. Okay, just think about that for a second. Now, in my book, this is a crime. This is a massive crime. We can no longer allow this. I mean, I haven't even got a word for it. I mean, Noam Chomsky described the situation recently. Well, maybe not so recently, but I read recently. And he can't find a word for the state we live in. Evil, he says, doesn't even come close to describing what we're living in. And I agree. I completely agree. This is beyond evil. In at least in a bee society, everybody is assigned a certain task. Now, at birth, they're assigned what they're going to be, and how is that then followed through? Yeah, by their diet. Exactly. That's right, Dave. So, if they're bringing up new queens, it's the same egg. It's the same egg. So the queen, lays all these eggs. And they're all the same. Bingo. So they're fed royal jelly, which is it's a different substance to honey. And the worker bees, the worker bees get honey. So royal jelly goes to the future queens, and honey goes, or sugar water sometimes, goes to the other bees, the worker bees, as it were. And it is determined at birth, who are they going to be? Now, we're worse. We are worse. So the bees determine it at birth. That's that. So the eggs are all the same. Okay, then the diet of the bee determines where they're going to go. We have gone beyond that. Hooray for us. As soon as the child is conceived, because it's already shortened telomeres from their parents. It gets their shortened telomeres from their parents at the moment of conception, not at birth. The child develops obviously in the womb, and so forth, and then before it's born, unlike a bee, before it's born, it is already determined that this child will probably have a shorter lifespan than someone from a more affluent background. Let that sink in for a second. That's where we are. That's. I mean, you can argue. Okay, you can argue. Science. It is. This is hard science. The studies are still ongoing. But can we all see the importance of telomeres here? Right? Stress. And think about this as well. What is the one thing, Dave, that we've experienced to almost incomprehensible proportions over the last 30, 40 years?
Stress?
Stress and fear, yes, exactly.
Pepsi?
Full marks. Pepsi, partial credit. Stress and fear. It's a deliberate thing. It's a deliberate thing. Break down our immune system. Break down our... We are now at a point where this kind of stuff, as it were, is breaking down the biology of our children. There's nothing you can do. You can't escape it. I mean, you can move into the country, I guess, or move on a mountain, live under a rock somewhere. That's your only, in a Faraday cage. It's astounding. It really is. Now, but the point of all of this was really to highlight the fact that we seem to have a built-in kill switch. Okay, we are meant to age and die well before our time. Well before our time. 100 years, 120 years at the maximum. I mean, some people are...
120 years. It's written, isn't it, in the Bible, making 120 years?
Yeah, I think so, right?
It is.
And it's part of our mythology, like we said earlier. This is mythology. I'm not saying there were Adam and Eve as actual people. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that the Adam race, the people, the black-headed ones, as they were called by in the Epic of Atrahasis, and the people that were meant to take the work of the Igigi, were created, and at some point, and it seems, with a certain lifespan. Right? And also they're kept ignorant. So the legends that we have of Prometheus, Lucifer, the fall of Adam and Eve, the expulsion rather out of the Garden of Eden, etc. In my mind, that's a memory, a racial memory, a myth of us gaining knowledge or having received knowledge which we're not meant to have. We're not meant to have certain advanced knowledge, but we did get it. And because we got it, we became a problem. We can't have that. Because if now that we have this knowledge, the next step would have been to achieve immortality. Eat from the tree of life. It's a metaphor, right? I don't think there was an actual tree per se. Not saying that, okay? But it is clear that we somehow got knowledge. Someone took pity on us, maybe Enki. I don't know, right? And this is across the board, and knowledge has come to us from somewhere else. It was given to us, and the person that gave it to us was then punished quite severely. Yeah. Quite severely. And in order for us to not to gain immortality as well, and then make us like them, because that's what it says everywhere. If they got knowledge and now give them immortality, they're going to be like us. What's the difference? We can't have that. That's no good. Now, this is not even us. This is the race that was before us. Okay, that race was destroyed in the flood. For the most part, it seems. Okay, that race, the black-headed ones, the work people of the Anunnaki that took the labor of the Igigi, was the race before this race.
And this one was the modified set that has an expiration date. Correct.
They're not making the same mistake twice. Right? So that's really the point here. Built-in kill switch. Built-in kill switch. Can't live too long. In fact, we discussed this earlier as well, and Dave mentioned it as well in a previous show, like I think maybe 2 shows ago. We live through certain developmental stages as human beings, right? So we're in the womb, then we're born, right? We're newborn. No teeth, no hair, or limited hair. sexually completely not developed at all. Okay, so certain hormones haven't kicked in yet, and then we suckle. We at the teeth, as it were. We're mammals, and then we grow up, and then we go through the developmental stages. We learn to walk, we learn to talk, right? We go to toddler, then young child, on, and then a massive change happens during puberty, right? Massive change. But in that time, we also grow teeth. We grow our first milk teeth, and with these milk teeth, we lose at the age of 5, 6, 7, or at the age of 12, 13, 14. We normally have a full set of adult teeth, which are seemingly not replaceable. So the first set of teeth, the smaller ones, are lost, and then you get another set of teeth. These are all developmental stages, and then you've got puberty, and a whole bunch of hormones kick in. That's an age related. So there must be a switch somewhere that counts down and says, okay, now's the time for this to kick in. It's not an outside thing. Like what I mean by that is like it's
That's
not,
right. It's not an influence from outside of your body. It's within internally. And Meki,
because it's different. Yep.
Yeah. So Meki, when you get to your 40s, if you're a woman, then menopause creeps up on you.
Correct.
So the point that I'd made in the past show was if we only lived to 35, then we wouldn't have ever experienced menopause.
Bingo.
We never knew it existed.
And we might never have experienced old age, except for a few outliers. Like we would never have gotten gray hair or lost our teeth or lost our hair, etc., etc. Yeah. If you die before the age of 40 or 50, for argument's sake.
That's right.
Now, take that to its logical extension, and this is a bit of a leap, but stay with us. Now, let's say we had telomerase, the enzyme, functioning in our body. So what that means is we don't experience biological aging. Okay, maybe there's some other things that kick in, maybe other enzymes that are activated if that enzyme stays active. I don't know, right? But let's say that happens. So we're not actually aging. So we might be 80 years old, but we don't look 80. We still look like we look 25, 30 years old. Mm-hmm. Because we've arrested the aging process and we've lived a good life, eaten the right foods, stayed away from drugs and smoking and all of that stuff. For argument's sake, right? Just bear with the argument here. Is it not possible that at a certain age, 130, 140, whatever, another developmental stage kicks in?
A whole new era occurs, yeah.
Right? Similar to menopause. So menopause happens to women, and essentially what happens is that they stop producing eggs. Certain hormones in their bodies are switched off. That's it's what happens, right? It's an internal clock, biological clock, they call it, that ticks down.
We could get taller again.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe that's really the point here. Maybe we would get taller. These myths and legends of giants, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe it wasn't a different race per se. Maybe it was us, but with telomerase and other enzymes and certain genetic switches turned on or turned off, as it were. So we continue to develop. And that's why I made the argument some time ago that we're actually children. Even when we die at the age of 100, we're children because our mental stage, we never really mature enough. Now, women mature faster than men, and men, for the most part, they stay boys in many ways. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying this in a derogatory manner. It's a fact. Men are that's just how men are. Mm-hmm. Not every man, but in general. That's why we have wars. Maybe we're never given enough time to develop the mental faculties to live in peace and come up with a society that doesn't have to go to war. We don't have to be the monkey on the pile of bananas that it will kill every other monkey trying to grab a banana. Because right now we are that monkey. We have billionaires. What if our mental faculties were allowed to grow as we grow older? Because the truth is this: when you're born, you can't speak. You can't do anything when you're born, right? And then you go through maturing and learning processes. Number one, your brain matures and becomes able to do things more efficiently, and you form neural pathways, you learn language, you might become good at things, at puzzles or whatever it might be, but your brain is really firing on all cylinders, right? And as you get older, your brain sort of declines. What if that decline, with the introduction of these the killer of the kill switches.
Mhm.
What if that decline doesn't happen? Your brain keeps developing.
Yeah, so imagine
Maybe.
like once again, just supporting the argument here before you get to the maybe, and if you only lived to 10, you would never have reached puberty. We couldn't even imagine at 10 years old that our bodies can change so significantly.
Yeah,
we had no clue that that was even a thing. If we only lived to 10, extending our lifespan to 20, and you realize, hey, this all of that, we never knew this could happen. Extending our lives, extending the nice part of our lives from 20 to 35, right?
Yeah.
To be
now what?
400 years long.
Yeah.
Is the maybe
10,000.
Yeah, 10,000. Yeah.
Now, if you look at the skull, then, right? So our skull grows. Obviously that's what happens. We see this, and then it stops growing at a certain age. But who's to say that the skull doesn't start growing at a certain age again? We don't know that because we haven't reached that age. But all these skulls that we find, and they're not binding. They're not the results of skull binding and artificial elongation
cradle
of the
boarding.
skull. Not all of them. Cradle, yeah, exactly. Not some, of course, some are, but I think it's the some that are they're trying to emulate something that existed.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what if
just like foot binding, Meki in China?
Yeah, tiny little feet, right? Oh, we like that. Okay.
The emperor liked girls with little feet, so everyone tried to emulate that.
Yeah,
much
exactly.
Now their foot's demise.
Yeah, I know. It was horrible. It's excruciating pain. So what if our skulls were to grow? What if our entire body were still to grow after the age of 140, after the age of 150? I don't know what the magic trigger point is. I don't know, because we haven't lived that long without the kill switch. Because even if you lived that long, you would be in extremely poor health, and maybe the switches that you need to throw can't be thrown because you're just too decrepit. You're just in a massive state of decline. It's just it's just how it is. And just imagine how much more we could learn and do if we could extend our lifespan. And at that point, maybe those biological changes could kick in. Maybe we would grow taller and more massive, as it were. Yeah. Maybe our skulls would elongate. Who knows? And maybe different peoples would do different things. Because the thing is this, right? Everybody thinks all Homo sapiens look the same. Not true. Complete fallacy. If you compare the skulls, especially the skulls, for example, of different human populations, like Asian population to European population, but not all of them. But look, I take myself as an example. My skull is quite pronounced in the back, so I've got a whole thing that's sticking out.
Me too.
Right, so I haven't got a flat. Yeah, I haven't got a flat skull. I've got it sticks out, and everybody says my son is the same. It sticks out. Our head shape is exactly the same. Whereas there are some populations where the skull is actually quite flattened in the back.
Completely, and they weren't cradle boarded. That was just the way that their skull developed. Yep.
Yeah, it's just how it is. But my point is, though, that we're not all the same. So therefore, it could develop differently for different peoples or different populations, right? Yeah. So again, maybe, and I've always maintained that the red-haired peoples of the world with the freckles and the that skin tone, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
That they in fact are a separate not I guess a separate race, as Africans are separate, as European or Caucasians are separate, as Asiatic people are separate. I believe that those red-haired or with the again freckles and fairly pale skin are separate again, mixed throughout largely the Caucasian population, but a race in their own right. And maybe those, and I'm not saying that's the case, so bear with me, but maybe those guys turn into giants. Right? Maybe they're triggers.
Maybe they're the ones. Yeah, that's right.
Maybe, because we hear a lot about the red-haired and red-bearded giants, right? Even of the First Nation peoples in America. Okay, so this is because, and the truth is, I haven't seen anyone make this argument, Dave, and I've researched this until the cows come home. So we will be publishing a book going forward, and it is a leap, and it's completely out there what we're proposing here, right? I know that, I get it, but what if the human development is arrested at a critical point, so we just don't understand and don't know what we're missing out on? We just don't know. Because we don't get to live that long. Like Dave said.
If you had a slider, and it was all these certain events would occur, you would make the slider between the events. and go, well, this is the maximum age. If I was going to limit
Yeah,
it, I would make the
yeah,
limit occur when there was a trough. So
yeah,
they could never have found out, right?
yeah. There's a great science fiction movie. Oh, I mean, I like it, but I grew up with it.
It's getting less great. Oh well,
Yeah.
I liked it.
It's called Logan's Run,
It won a
right?
Tomato Award. Yeah, I like that movie.
And essentially, in a nutshell, it's a society after a cataclysmic event, maybe nuclear war. They're living in a fantastic city, but they obviously they need to control their population. So at the age of, I think it's 30.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's the age.
My wrist is my palm is flashing, Becky.
Yeah. But in the actual short story, I think it's actually 21.
Mm-hmm.
But I think they made it 30 for the movie. So at the age of 30 in the movie, you go. I think it's called Ascension Day, but essentially, it's this great festival, and you're going somewhere, and you're going to the next stage of your life. That's how it's sold. It's like this great holiday. It's wonderful. So what it really is that they suspend you through anti-gravity so you're floating about, right, in an arena, and they shoot you down. So essentially they explode you. So they kill you. At the age of 30, you get killed. And these people have never seen an old person. These people have never experienced menopause.
Mm-hmm.
So they go to sexual maturity, and then they're children, absolutely, right? But at the age of, again, I think in the book it's 21, but in the movie it was 30. Anything beyond 30, they don't know. And Edward G. Robinson is in that movie. And in the end, when Michael York, the actor, he runs away with the lady, and I forget the actress's name, but they run away, right? And they in fact, they're in Washington, actually, that's where they are. And they find this old man, and they go, well, what are you? And it was an old man. It was Edward G. Robinson who played that old man.
Mm-hmm.
And they'd never seen an old man with wrinkles and gray hair and, and all sort of hunched up. And if you know Edward G. Robinson in his later years, he was the epitome of an old person, really.
The nurse was the same. No, sorry. The lady that ran away with him was the nurse from An American Werewolf in London.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Yes, I can't remember her name, though. I'm so sorry. But ultimately, though, I believe that's exactly what we are experiencing, right? We are cut short. So instead of dying at the age of 30, we die at the age of 100 on the outside, or 120, and we never experience what it's like beyond that, right? Because we age. Senescence sets in, the kill switches are flipped, and your biological functions decrease. Whereas if the kill switch hadn't been flicked, they might not. There might be another stage of development in the human journey. I mean, we see this all around ourselves all the time. So I mean, we've just given you the example of what happens to human beings as they go through, birth, puberty, etc., menopause, and all that. But when other creatures are going through much more dramatic transformations, take a caterpillar. So a caterpillar starts its life as an egg. It's an egg that's laid on the underside of a leaf. Okay, so the egg develops and hatches, and it's like this little, wriggly worm, like a caterpillar. It goes around, it spends its, days, weeks, months, whatever it is, eating leaves and being a caterpillar, and perfectly content to be a caterpillar as it is. Then an amazing thing happens. Okay, and it's called metamorphosis, which means great change. It's great. It just means great change. That's all it means.
Rather than being compelled to only eat and increase its mass, it's compelled then to create a cocoon around itself with silk, which it's not used before. Yeah,
exactly.
Continue.
So because it's that trigger, Dave, right? That's the trigger that it experiences. And then an amazing thing happens. The caterpillar is a worm with little sucker feet. That's what it is. Okay, but this little worm with sucker feet turns into a butterfly or a moth or whatever it might be, right? A completely different creature, flying around. So it truly is an ugly duckling. Well, actually, it's more extreme than that. Ugly duckling turning into a swan. This is like one creature turning into a completely different creature.
So,
and then that's the
it creates an exoskeleton from its soft body, liquefies and reassembles itself.
Yes,
it's a truly amazing thing.
It is, but it's not the only creature that does it. There are many creatures that go through these stages of metamorphosis, mostly in the insect world, sure, yes. But but not only, right? I mean, funny thing is, I mean, fish, for example, right? I mean, there are certain species of fish that if they get trapped, and that seems to be quite happening to those kind of fish a lot, they get trapped in a cave, for example, right?
Mm-hmm.
And let's say there are two male fish. One of the fish is going to change its sex spontaneously. It just happens.
Mm-hmm.
The biological world is full of wonders. It's full of amazing things, and to think that the human beings are somehow exempt from that, I think is complete nonsense. Okay, maybe Dave, this just occurred to me, by the way. This is a new thought, everybody, completely new thought here. What if a part of that developmental stage maybe is Bigfoot? You with me? What if once we reach Bigfoot stage, we no longer give birth to human babies like we are, for example, but we give birth to Bigfoot babies?
Oh my goodness, that'd be so.
You understand what I'm saying? I know. I'm not saying that's what it is. I'm just saying, couldn't it be? Couldn't it? And again, we don't know because we don't live long enough. We don't go through these changes. And of course, scientists will say, "Oh, Mackie, you're crazy. That's just nonsense." Is it though? If I lived in a society where I died at the age of 21, I will never hear of menopause. So if I go into that society and I said to all these women in this society, I said, guys, when you reach the age of 40, you will become infertile.
And they go, no.
Yeah. You will
women hater.
You will undergo extreme emotional states because the hormones in your body are going to change.
So,
what a crazy thing.
So, Mackie, they go, but what about men then? What happens to them in your world? And you go, nope.
Nope, not men, just women. What? That's crazy. God, I don't believe you. No, that's how it is. So, see, this is the thing, though. So, what? And why is that happening anyway? I mean, what's the evolutionary rationale here for that? If you think about that for a second, menopause to control the population. What? It doesn't make any sense from an evolutionary point of view.
Remember, it takes a lot of women to raise a child. Theory of how that would work, and you would become the greater carer.
Sure,
right.
But that's
kind of what we've done with it in the past.
But that's not a biological imperative. That's a political development, if you will, right?
That's the fallout as a causation.
Yeah, there you go. It's the fallout of the biological reality.
Right.
Correct. Now, see, this is really, and you know. Give you another simple example. Milk. Wet nurses. Are you familiar with that term? So a woman produces milk for as long as she suckles. So if you have a child and you breastfeed, you will produce milk as long as you breastfeed. That's the thing. And then when you stop breastfeeding, boom, your body shuts it down. My point is, your body will react to outside stimuli as well as stimuli.
That's right, because it's also reactional as well. Yeah. You could not have been pregnant, but can begin to breastfeed for someone else.
Yeah. So all cows are wet nurses. Okay? All cows, all dairy production, even goats and sheep, etc. Anything we milk, essentially, we are artificially prolonging the milk production in these animals.
Yeah.
We are. That's what we're doing. So just to be clear, this. I'm not. Okay, it sounds crazy, I know, but just wrap your head around this, right? It's going to get crazier next week, I tell you that.
This is a tinfoil.
But it is. It is. So, and this is really and I've never, ever, Dave, I've never seen any other researcher go down this path. Okay, so if you're listening to the shiny side here, this is, I haven't seen it anywhere else. Nobody else has postulated this theory except for us. And this is our original contribution to this field of research. Okay, and the hypothesis in its generality and overall approach. Certain component parts, of course, other researchers have very well contributed, pioneered, in fact. But this particular thing we're discussing right now, that's all us. And I know it's a leap, but is it really, looking at the rest of the biological world, is it really that much of a leap? I know hard scientists, etc., armchair debunkers and all those wonderful people, they go, what a crazy thing you're talking about, Dave and Mackie. Clearly, we need to butterfly that out and put you in a padded cell. Really. Now, all the examples we've given you here, all the things we've discussed, everything, it doesn't provide proof positive. No, it doesn't. It does not provide proof positive. And we can't get that until we can live beyond a certain age without a kill switch being on. And maybe there are other triggers in our DNA and in enzymes, other chemicals that are coursing through our body. Maybe we need to stop the calcification of the pineal gland.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know.
Please.
I don't know, but right?
It's too late for me. Save yourself.
Save yourself. Well, you get another chance soon enough. Don't worry, mate. Because we all come back, right? And the highest, when I say soon, we'll put another 50, 60 years. But the point is, we all seem to be on this merry-go-round indefinitely, right? And when we get to that point as well, when we talk about quantum mechanics and the double-slit experiment, because this theory is all-encompassing, and people say, oh, you just everything, confirmation bias, and you just look at the stuff that helps you. No, we don't. This stuff just comes at us.
Yeah. And
it just seems to light up. Look, we talked about the awareness cascade in 2020 as being a critical year for potential catastrophic events years ago. We said it. We were brave enough to say, yeah, 2020, I think something is going to happen in 2020. It's not going to be good. Right? And we said, yeah, probably biological, because that's cheapest. Right? And
that's right.
Hey, presto. This is not stuff that we just made up. This is where our research has led us to. You understand? Yes, there were leaps. Yes, there was intuition. Right? But it's the synthesis of our learnings, if you will. The ability to have the freedom to speak to people through this medium here, people that we very much admire, right? And yeah, we owe a lot to Revolution Radio, I think, and Nighthawk specifically. It is not crazy.
Mickey, we probably would never have been able to put this much effort into research because of our lives get in the way, right?
Yeah.
And this has given us the advantage of being able to do this research.
Yeah, and because we are who we are, and I'm German, so I have this compulsion to teach. I need to have something, and we produced between us, volumes of show notes, and all completely referenced as well, of course. But yeah, you're right, Dave. This has given us both the impetus and I guess an excuse in many ways to compile this research. And we've done 500 shows now, and we've talked to a whole bunch of people. And as crazy as everything that we've just shared with you sounds, it's going to get crazier. Okay, if you think the kill switch and human beings living indefinitely and maybe having other stages of development like puberty, like menopause, right? Once we turn the kill switch off, it's going to get crazier, and it's going to get more esoterical.
Yeah, if we learn how to turn that kill switch off, then you think about what people are going to make.
Oh yeah,
because holistically, if you're able to make that serious kind of modification to DNA, then you're going to have a go. That's very strange.
Yeah.
Going to have a go at trying other things. You have to consider that the Anunnaki knew what they were doing. They had the experience, the know-how. They had the reason to create, with the Igigi, they had the reason to create a new set of people to do the toil. That's what they had.
Yeah.
Now, they were much taller than us, probably 36 foot tall or some crazy numbers, right?
Possibly.
But the imagery suggests this. Even the image of the Anunnaki holding the lion, Mickey, that we spoke about.
Absolutely. And it's not a fantastic. It's just a big guy holding a lion that looks like a cat on him.
Mm-hmm. That's a big person.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is not a cat, and in fact, we know it's a lion because it's got a mane, and a lion doesn't develop a mane until it matures, until it becomes an old like cubs.
Have you seen how big a lion is in real life?
It's pretty. It's not small. It's not a cat.
It's like 8 foot long.
Yeah, it's massive, right? And he holds it like a kitten.
Mm-hmm.
So it is really important to put it all together. We can't just focus on the one thing. We need to look at it holistically. Hopefully, with this the show cycle around the hypothesis now, show 500. Hopefully we can bring that together for you. I mean, you have to bear with us over the next few weeks because we can't. If we did it in one sitting, look, I think we could do it in one sitting. It would probably take us 14 or 16 hours of a continuous show. We can get through it.
It'd be like Krusty, 72 hours straight.
But see, sometimes new things like what you just witnessed when I said, hey, maybe it's Bigfoot. That just popped into my head as we're discussing this. And Dave comes up and says, oh, how about pop this or pop that, right? Because these ideas, once you go down of free association and I guess the synthesis of all the material that you have in your head and in front of you and when you're in discussion, with each other that we are, other things pop up.
That's right.
And it evolves, right? But I haven't seen anything yet, right? Not a single piece. And I'm looking. There's nothing more than I'd love to be wrong about all of this, by the way. I'd love my life to be really simple. Oh, this is just life, Mackie. Life is just, stuff happens, then everything is good. Don't worry about anything else. If that were true, I'd be a very happy person. I really would. I'm not just saying it, right? But I just don't think that's true. And I haven't seen anything that would indicate that.
I love the comforting feeling I get when I'm patted on the head and told that everything is going to be just fine.
Yeah. We love the leader.
I know. Completely. I love the leader too.
Love the leader.
So, I'm not going to bother reading more text. I've marked.
No.
I've marked where it is because we can't. It's a bit long for the next.
Yeah. So next week it's going to be about how long have human beings been around, or Homo sapiens, or something like Homo sapiens, right? And the answer might surprise you. We're going to go into some serious, if we get time, that is, into some serious ages. And there's a really awesome book. If you want to do some homework before the next show, you can read Michael Cremo's Forbidden Archaeology. Michael Cremo. Now, funny thing is this. When Michael Cremo published his book, and it was not just him, but I do apologize. I can't recall the other author. I will next week. I do apologize. But when it was first published, he was lauded. He was lauded for his scholarship. Oh, because it's very dry to read. I mean, it's a really dry text. Good luck trying to get through it. But it's full of explosive information, and all the scientists, archaeologists, historians, everybody alike says, oh, what a very scholarly work you've produced. Of course, it's complete nonsense, but it's very scholarly. You've cited the sources, you've done your homework, you've gone through the primary materials, you've given us everything that we need from a scientific point of view. So you follow the scientific method. He's gone to the primary sources, he's quoted everything, right? It's completely dry, and he's backed it all up with the evidence that he found in the literature, etc. Right? Now you can't find a lot of the actual artifacts that I talked about because they seem to have disappeared. Right? But Michael Cremo, Forbidden Archaeology, if you can.
Wow, another show, 502 done. This is David Mickey Shiny Side Out. Stay tuned for Jer Bear and his awesome show After Hours coming up next. And until next week,